other, engage in truth-telling about the experiences of AAPI women, engage in truth-telling about white supremacy in America, pay attention to what is happening here in Texas and around the country to eliminate history in our schools, and continue working towards challenging the narrative of race in America. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy, for those comments, and especially for those calls to action. Really appreciate those. Your next speaker is Helen Shi. Dr. Helen Shi is a board member of the United Chinese Americans, a national civic rights organization for the Chinese community, and a community leader. Helen is a holistic health specialist in the field of healing and personal transformation. She is an active member of the Asian community, leading the efforts in civic activism, women, and youth leadership movement.
Good evening, everyone. How are you all doing? Great. Okay, I'm Dr. Helen Shi. I'm a community advocate and also a member of the planning committee. So thank you so much for coming tonight. I know you have a busy day and the traffic is so terrible. We can't find parking, but we're all here. So give yourself a big applause, and we're here. This is our stage, and it's time to claim our own space, right? So among all of the giants of activists and leaders here, today I'm so honored and humbled to talk about Asian American experience because we are being under attack. And since 2016, anyone remember what happened in 2016? We have some political leaders came to the nation, right? And since then, we have been facing so many challenges, every possible difficulty we have met. And through those difficult times, through the trade war, through those times being called the Chinese virus, through those times that businesses are shutting down, through those times that nobody is willing to come to Chinatown, we have stood up for ourselves. We're not only survived, but we also thrive. So that's something we should be so proud of ourselves. And that is the Asian spirit. The Asian spirit of being resilient, being enduring in a difficult time, and that is who we are as Asian Americans. Not only that, we have donated food, we have donated PPE, we have cooked, we brought chicken noodle soup, we brought curry fried, we brought all kinds of Asian food because guess what? Food is our love. As Asian Americans, food and compassion are who we are. Don't you agree? Who loves Asian food? Yeah, that's great. So not only that, we also have to fight so much racism against us. Our community leaders organized together. We work with our congressional leaders, and we have fought hard against something called the China Initiative. Who know about this term called China Initiative? Raise your hand. Okay, if you don't know, make sure you Google that term. Because just last month, a few weeks ago, we had made the federal government repeal and revoke that initiative because all of the Chinese scientists and scholars are being wrongly accused as spies and espionage. Instead of honor our work, supporting the science, supporting the research development in this country, we are being accused, we are being scapegoated. And that is the problem we're facing. And that shows our spirit as Asian Americans. Because guess what? We are Kung Fu warriors, aren't we? We are the Mulan. Yes, women, come up. Yes, you are the Kung Fu warrior. Show us the courage and the justice for all. That's the spirit of Asian American. And lastly, last year, we also mobilized the nationwide Stop Asian Hate movement. And guess what? Because of our movement, in May, under the Biden administration, U.S. Congress and the White House has first time in Asian American history passed the COVID anti-Asian hate bill. And that is our victory, our moment of victory. So give your applause for that. And that is our spirit as Asian Americans, to be nonviolent, to be compassionate for everyone, not because of hate, but because of our love for our neighbors, for our families, because we see everyone is part of a big family. So not only that, I also want to mention about voting, as the previous speaker has mentioned about. In 2018, we have 11 Asian American elected officials to vote into our office. And that is also first time ever happened in Houston in Asian American history. So some of the candidates here, more than 30 of them are running for offices in Houston. Do we have all the candidates here? Please raise your hand. We have them here. Give them applause. They are our leaders. They are speaking our voice. So tell your neighbors, tell your family to vote for them. And that is the Asian American spirit. Our aspiration for tomorrow. We want to do the best of our best. We are A++. Don't you agree? Yeah! A++. Perfect. We can't make this list go on and on. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We all know we are continuously being attacked. We're the vulnerable community in this country. The world is going on with the wars and wearing my blue for the Ukraine women and children. We don't know. We can't predict what will happen tomorrow. But what we can do is to stand up for our Asian value. Stand up for who we are and why we're here in Asia and in America. And today, I want all of us to break our silence and to stand up for our true Asian spirit. Be the Mulan of today. Yes! Be the Mulan of today. Mulan! 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 Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Helen. Put that back in there. Thank you for those remarks. I believe right now we've got Alice Lee coming up to the stage, and she'll lead us in the Yellow Whistle event.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I am Alice Lee, and every day I work with the constituents and business groups in Asiatown, Chinatown. So you can imagine what these past 2 years have been like living through this pandemic. But anyway, I just wanted to make some acknowledgments on behalf of the Asian American Bar Foundation that any of the speeches from our elected officials or any of our speakers tonight does not represent any endorsement on behalf of the Asian American Bar Foundation. And we also want to thank the Asian American Bar Association of Houston for sponsoring this event tonight. So hopefully each of you have the yellow whistle in your hands. This project was officially launched on April 19th of 2021 on Patriots Day. It was started by Dr. Agnes Xu Tang with her husband and friends in response to the anti-Asian hate and violence. Dr. Xu Tang is chairwoman of the New York Historical Society, Board of Trustees, and a distinguished consulting scholar at the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. So she started this whistle as a symbol of self-protection and solidarity in our common fight against historical discrimination, anti-Asian violence, and racial profiling. It has a universal purpose to signal alarm and call for help for all Americans. We are whistleblowing to fight back against the stereotype that Asians are a silent minority. We shall not remain silent because we belong. So, throughout the pandemic, they have distributed close to 200,000 whistles. I'm going to ask the group that I'm going to introduce, can you please come up on the stage, and each of them is going to give a quick introduction. So we have Lily Rodriguez, Donna Cole, Q Iman, Nikki Hafizi, Jean Lynn, Alice Shell, our dear Asian youth, Daniel Lee, We have also Gordon Kwan, Bill Bobrick. So if you'll stand behind me. And I just wanted to give a quick acknowledgement to Assistant Chief Van Tien from the Houston Police Department and everyone here from the Houston Police Department. You see that we are well represented by them. And if you look to your right, my left, you'll see that HPD Mounted Patrol is also here with us tonight. And very soon you'll be hearing from Director Cloud from the Houston Police Department. We also have the officers from the the Hate Crimes Division are also here. So thank you. Can we give a hand to our Houston Police Department partners? Thank you so much. So unfortunately, Ruthie Natarajan had to leave. She was from the Community Outreach Liaison from Lena Hidalgo, Harris County Judge's Office. She was here earlier and wanted to show solidarity and support on behalf of our county judge. And our county judge has dedicated $1.4 billion to help get guns and violence off the street. And also, she cares very deeply for our AAPI community. Next, I'd like to introduce Lily Rodriguez from Congressman Al Green's office. If you could quickly tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pass the mic.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'll be brief. My name is Lily Rodriguez. I'm the Communications Director for Congressman Al Green. I'm happy to be here representing him and our office. He sends his apologies. He is currently in Washington, D.C. voting, but he proudly stands in solidarity with the AAPI community and AAPI women in standing up and speaking out against all forms of violence, bigotry, and invidious discrimination. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next, I'd like to bring up Donna Cole, and she is representing the JACL. Also, she's with the Japan American Society. And most importantly, she helped to get the Congressional Gold Medal recognition for the Japanese American World War II veterans. So please welcome Donna Cole, Uchimota Cole.
Good evening. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to see all of you out here, and I just hope that you will go back home and share all of this information with your friends and family members. Know that we will never look like we're American, right? And so we always have to be conscious about that. And what can we do to change that with people, to know that we're good, upstanding U.S. citizens or good, upstanding people. And so I turn it over to you tonight, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Donna. Next, I'd like to bring up Q Iman, representing APAPA.
Thank you so much. So a very good evening. Thank you so much for being here. It actually means a lot. It sends a loud message to everyone of what we heard tonight. APAPA, the Asian American Pacific Islander American Public Affairs, long name. Our sole purpose is to ensure that what we heard tonight about representation, about being engaged civically, is to create that environment, that infrastructure, especially for Asian American women, to step up, give them the tools, give them the resources, give them the network to step up and be part of what we call public service. We're not asking people to run for Congress, we're asking for people to get involved civically, local, county, state, federal. We provide that support. So if you know of anyone, or if you yourself are interested in doing all the things we talked about tonight, reach out. We will get you plugged in. If you're a young person, we'll get you internships, hopefully, in elected officials' offices. And if you are wanting to run for an office, we'll get you on that track. So keep that in mind. APAPA Houston chapter, you can look us up online. But you need to take that step to make all that we heard tonight happen. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'm just going to introduce everyone else. So we have Daniel Lee, he is representing Huaxiao Chinese School. We also have Jean Lynn, representing the Global Federation of Chinese Businesswomen. Alice Chao is representing the Federation of Chinese Trade Alumni of Greater Houston. Nikki Hafizi with Engage. We have Dear Asian Youth here. We have Bill Bobrick representing the American Federation of Teachers. And the only elected official on the stage, I'm going to allow Gordon Kwan to give the final remarks. 1 minute, and then we'll blow the whistle together.
Thank you, Alice. Again, thank you for coming out tonight. When I was growing up, I was told we as Asian Americans can't come through the front door. We're small people. We don't have a voice. We have to go through the side door, have other people represent us. Well, now is our time. Now is the time for Asian Americans to stand up. We don't need to take it anymore. We have a respected community. We have proven that we are Americans and that we have a voice and an opinion, and those things that have offended us in the past, we have to speak out about. So thank you. But let me just say, you don't have to have a title. You don't have to be elected to office. Every one of you make a difference. That's right. You're all important. And don't forget that. We are Americans, and we're going to let them know we have a voice, and we're not going to get pushed around. Thank you. Okay, now, we get the whistle. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's go! We're heard.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate that. All right, our next speaker was the Representative Gene Wu from the state, but he had a conflict and couldn't make it tonight, but he did send us a statement, and I will try to do justice to what he wrote here. Representative Wu said, "I'm sorry I cannot be with you today. The tragedy that brings us here today shocked and saddened our community. But what has been happening to the Asian American community is not new. We have been long being targeted as outsiders and aliens in this nation. From Vincent Chen in 1982 to the victims in Atlanta in 2021, Asian Americans are seen as easy targets for hate. We often become scapegoats for the world's problems. It means nothing to attack and abuse our community. This is because some people do not see us as truly American, because Americans fight back, because Americans scream and shout when something is wrong, because Americans get organized and vote when they are insulted. We cannot easily change the people around us, but we can change ourselves. Let us use this tragedy as a call for action. We must be loud and angry. We must protest and vote. We must make politicians fear us. We can no longer be silent, because silence is death sometimes." That's from Representative Wu. I appreciate those comments from him. Our next speaker is Shabazz Brown. He is a business trial lawyer and the founder of tech startup Diverse Pro, which makes it easy to find and connect with diverse lawyers who know the language, culture, and experience. He is a staunch advocate of diverse and underrepresented communities and believes that diversity is the single most effective tool in achieving greater professional equality. Shabazz?
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Before I'm a lawyer and before I'm a founder of Diverse Pro, I am a community activist, and I support the Asian American community, and I support AAPI women, and I'm very happy to be here and join in this rally in justice for Asian women, and to share with you a bit about what I know about coalition building and allyship. But when I reflect on the topic we're all here today to talk about, I think about my own friends and I think about my loved ones. I think about Sophia, and I think about her smile, and I think about her heart, and I think about her courage under fire. I think about her mom, Donna, her sister, Susan, and her 80-year-old grandma, Amachi. Her and her husband immigrated to the U.S. almost 50 years ago, seeking and achieving a better life for their family. And when I think about them, and when I think about the potential danger that might come to them simply because of who they are, I'm deeply disturbed by that. And so when we reflect on coalition building and we reflect on allyship, I ask myself, well, what can I do? Or what can we do? And these concepts, one of which is not new to us, coalition building, we've heard about that. But allyship It's not a new word, but it's a relatively new concept that I heard almost 2 years ago in the wake of George Floyd. These questions that are posed to us are defining in the answers themselves. You have to ask yourself, what can I do? Individually, what can I, Shabazz Brown, do? What resources, what information do I have? What action can I take to help a community in need? And then who can I work with? And what can we do together to move that needle? The answers to those questions are defining, and they help bring a solution to the problem we're here talking about. Now for me, it started maybe 5 to 7 years ago. I asked myself those same questions, and I looked to the things that I could touch. I could touch my passion, I could touch my networks, and I can touch my creativity. And I'll share with you 2 specific examples that came from that. The first is called the Coalition of Houston Diverse Bar Associations. We're in the most diverse metropolitan region in America. And that's a wonderful thing. I'm an Army brat, and let me tell you, I appreciate the differences in people. Houston, its strength is its diversity. And y'all probably did not know, but here in Houston, we have 7 minority bar groups, 3 Asian American groups, 1 African American black group, 1 Middle Eastern bar group, and a few years ago, some of us saw an opportunity to bring all of these groups together in a single platform. They were doing some amazing things in their respective communities, but there was a lot of overlap, and there wasn't a whole lot of discussion. And so what we did is we created this platform, we combined resources that it means to amplify our voices and further diversity here in the Houston legal community. The Coalition of Houston Diverse Bar Associations is one of my passions. The second is what we heard, Diverse Pro. This is my baby. This is my baby. I saw that there are gaps in legal representation, and I saw that there were limitations in the delivery of legal services. What Diverse Pro does is it takes technology and it takes data and it makes it easier for consumers in underrepresented and diverse communities to find lawyers who are great at what they do, but also know the culture, speak the language, understand the life experience. If you've ever wanted a Mandarin-speaking family law lawyer, if you ever wanted a Vietnamese culturally competent trial lawyer, you can find that easily on Diverse Pro. As we reflect on this topic, I ask you to consider the questions that I posed to you earlier as we reflect on ways that we can close the gap and find solutions to the problems affecting this community and AAPI women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shabazz. Our next speaker is Carvina Cloud. She's an attorney, a former senior prosecutor, and deputy director of the Community Affairs Division for the Houston Police Department. As a child survivor of domestic violence raised in Houston's acre homes, Carvina is passionate about addressing the systemic deficiencies that exacerbate violent crime in all communities. Recognizing that domestic violence is a crime driver across our nation, Carvina regularly collaborates with stakeholders to design public safety responses that provide victim safety and enhanced offender accountability. Carvina.
Good evening. I bring you greetings on behalf of Police Chief Troy Finner and the entire HPD command staff. Thank you so much for all the elected officials who are present or their designees, and thank you so much for all of the speakers who came before me. I am so humbled to be here, not only as an African-American female member of a BIPOC community myself, but also as a member of HPD's command staff, because tonight is solemn, tonight is special, and tonight we call for solutions as we stand together to break the silence and denounce violence and demand justice for Asian women. Tonight is solemn because 1 year ago, we are here remembering the lives of 6 women who lost their lives to hate. Sadly, these days, violence is a part of our daily lives, but violence of any type is to be condemned. The brutal killings of these innocent victims has shined a very bright light of why and how law enforcement agencies are investing time and effort in collaborating with our partners, like many of your organizations here tonight, to understand what our community members need, especially those who are most vulnerable to crime, our Asian community, so they can feel safe, happy, and healthy where they live, where they work, and where they play. The killings of these heroines 1 year ago are solemn reminders that one life lost is one life too many. Tonight is also special. Tonight is special because it's a time where not just Houston, but cities across our nation are gathered to demand justice for Asian women. Tonight, we've learned a lot about Asian Pacific Islander history and some of the beautiful, uplifting experiences of Asian women. It's also a special night because many people are gathered together to recognize the importance and the value of the many contributions and accomplishments that Asian women have made, not only in our city, but our state and our nation. Understanding this, we truly recognize that we have a social responsibility to speak out against violence perpetuated against the Asian community, and especially violence perpetuated on Asian women. At the Houston Police Department, we recognize that crime certainly, unfortunately, does not discriminate, which is why we are committed to building relationships and developing solutions. Solutions so that crime victims of all races, colors, and creeds trust the police and can feel safe when reporting crime. At HPD, we just don't say, oh, call us because you'll call us when you're reporting crime. We go out of our way to go into communities, partner with organizations to make sure people feel safe when reporting crime. HPD has a victim services division that is trauma-informed, and every day we have officers and advocates who are in the offices, who are in stations, and will come to communities so people can report crime and help apply for crime victims compensation and other resources. We also operate a team called the Domestic Abuse Response Team that is actively engaging in making sure victims of domestic violence, many of which who are minority victims, can be supported. Every month since the program started, we've served no less than 400 victims as a part of the DART program. DART is a mobile advocacy service that goes to people's homes with police officers and advocates and forensic nurses so that they can receive restoration and healing. And because HPD has developed amazing relationships in this community, we work with organizations like Boat People SOS and the Tahoe Ray Justice Center to provide culturally relevant healing after the police leave that scene. Violence against any person will not be tolerated, and that's why our Community Affairs Division will continue to seek opportunities to build relationships with each and every one of you that are here present and our partners who weren't able to make it, simply because we know we must earn trust. We understand that we have to be present and we have to do all that we can, because when we work together, we can create one safe Houston. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Carvina, for that. Amazing initiatives, amazing programs. We're happy to have those for Houston. Our next speaker is Ben Chao. Ben is a board member of the OCA Greater Houston. He is an elections attorney and currently a candidate for Harris County Commissioner Precinct 4.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here as a representative of OCA Greater Houston and as an ally for our AAPI women. I was asked by the Asian American Bar Association to talk specifically about why the China virus word, that term, is harmful for our communities. But to start with that, I think it's important to bring in our personal stories to connect for all of you who may or may not be Asian American, who may be related, who be married, so on and so forth, to our Asian American experience. I have been involved in political campaigns for my entire life, okay? My first political campaign was for a family friend, fellow Chinese American. He ran for mayor of Sugar Land. I know there's a lot of you Sugar Land people here. Back in like the 2005, 2006 times. About 15, 16 years ago, I was that high school student who was super eager. I was gonna go put yard signs in your home. I was gonna go knock doors for you. I was gonna have that clipboard with the sign-up sheet so that when you came into the town hall, I would sign you up so that you could be added to our email listserv. When the candidate asked me to join him for a town hall to come and witness democracy in action, I was super excited. Because as we all know, here in Texas, right, our public education for civics and government is kind of limited. We have one semester's course of government, but you don't really get to witness it personally. So when I went to that town hall, I was so excited. I was gonna witness grassroots democracy at its finest. And when I stepped foot in there, I saw one Asian American in a crowd of all predominantly older folks. The first thing someone said, he stood up in the middle of the crowd and told him, "You're a communist because you were born in China." And then the second thing he said was, "You're not an American because you speak with an accent." 2 weeks before Election Day, our office was burned down. This was the late 2000s in Sugar Land, which is the most diverse suburb in all of Houston. It now has an Asian plurality. Folks, anti-Asian hate, anti-Asian sentiment has always existed here in the greater Houston area. But when terms like the China virus were uttered by our leaders, it signaled to folks that we have seen on our social media that it's now open season to target folks who happen to look like you're Chinese American, or if you are Chinese American. And what does that mean? I think over the last 2 years, we've seen on our social media accounts, elderly women, whether they're in New York or San Francisco, being shoved down for doing nothing more than simply walking home, maybe with a bag of groceries. A month ago, a 40-year-old Chinese American woman was shoved in front of the New York City subway and killed on the spot. These incidents of hate have risen in large part because the terms like China virus do more than just label us. They're meant to dehumanize us. They're meant to treat us like we are less than regular human people. Because what we have known is this: when you can treat a type of person as something less than just another person, a friend, a neighbor, then you are more than capable to treating them like a virus, like a plague, like an ant, like a disease, like a cockroach. We can't allow people to continue to treat us like this. So, what are the solutions? OCA. OCA is a fantastic nonprofit organization, nonpartisan, and one of the main activities that you can take part of in OCA is a free 1-hour bystander training course. What does that mean? For those of you who may be uncomfortable confronting people, a lot of agents, we're not very comfortable confronting folks, but how do we stand up for ourselves or others when we see someone saying something that we know is, excuse my language, bullshit, right? Or completely unacceptable? How do we find the courage to know what to say, and secondly, how do we say it in a way that de-escalates the situation, but also confronts the person so they know what their actions and their words are unacceptable? Come be a part of our OCA activities. A second one, for all of our lawyers that are here, come lead our naturalization and citizenship classes so that more of our Asian Americans can participate in voting. And for everyone here who has not registered to vote, because I worked in elections office and I know some of y'all have not registered to vote, Engage at this blue table has voter registration forms in multiple languages, in Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish, and English. So come and get registered to vote. These are some of the very easy, minute tasks that you can all do. And so, if you are looking for a home, an opportunity to give back, to be a part, and say something, to do something, come join OCA. Here's a little plug, OCAnational.org. OCAnational.org is where you can sign up to join our listserv. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ben, for all that great information. Good luck with your election there. Hope you win. All right, next I want to introduce AAPI Voices. Based in Houston, AAPI Voices aims to uplift the voices of a more inclusive AAPI community and allows for younger generation to address issues by taking up space through various platforms and mediums of art, performance, experimental, multimedia. I want to introduce members now. Jenna Marvilla, Rhea Sampillo, Trisha Morales, and Christian Toledo.
I was 15 when I heard my classmates make fun of a book about a Chinese person's narrative. The book was called Falling Leaves. There were around 5 Asians in my class. I was silent as I listened to my classmates complain about how boring and stereotypical and irrelevant the book was. I didn't tell them that I loved it, that I related to it, that I felt aspects of the author's Chinese story echo in my Vietnamese one too. That I was moved because the book was the only one from an Asian narrator I had read in class for the past 4 years. Even for the rest of high school, I did not read much Asian literature in school. The book might not be relevant to them, but it was to me. Do you see me?
It's my freshman year of high school, and somehow, as a mixed Asian American student, I have already experienced discrimination. A few months ago, at the beginning of my 4th period class, my teacher left the class for a few minutes and said she would be back. The class just worked quietly on their work. A minute later, 2 faculty members came into the room. Teacher 1 walked up to the board and pointed out that we were writing something down about population density, which we were. Then he said that our class should know what that is because we were AP. I just continued to write. Then teacher 1 pointed to me and said, "Hey, Asian girl, what's population density?" And of course I know what it is, but I hate being put on the spot, and I was in complete shock that I had just been referred to as Asian girl. Right after calling me out, teacher 1 remarked, "Well, you don't fit the stereotype." Then he moved on to a kid sitting to the left of me and proceeded to say, "Hey, Indian boy, what's population density?" I sat quietly with my jaw hanging open and my face flushed red from embarrassment, but too scared to call the teacher out for his inappropriate behavior. Teacher 1 then stated that this student did not fit the stereotype either. Do you see me?
In middle school, a friend and I were complaining about the high costs related to being in band. She cut the conversation short by stating, "But Asians are all rich, so you aren't worried about this." We are not a monolith, and we are not a stereotype. We are deserving of credit, respect, and individual recognition. Do you see me?
When you're young and when you don't study like other groups and when you don't learn about other groups, you get a kind of view of how the world looks that isn't realistic because our world is so diverse. And by having Asian American studies within our educations, we're allowing students to access these other resources. We're allowing students to learn about these other stories. And just by learning about them, you're able to intrinsically understand and value those other stories and those other experiences. And you're able to empathize with other students, which is so important for creating a society where we all work together. Empathy is really, really important, and we get that through our education system.
What you just heard were the voices of young Asian American women: Chen, 18, Alice, 17, Evelyn, 19, and Isha, 17 years old, navigating the current education system. Thank you so much for attending this event today and having us be part of the programming in remembrance of the incident that occurred 1 year ago where I spoke at the vigil. It is through education that empathy can be learned. I'd like to acknowledge that as a settler, we are standing on unceded territory of First Nations people and stand by their call for land back. My name is Jenna Marvilla, co-author of Filipinos in Houston, representing, as introduced, Aapi Voices. Alongside me on stage are my team members, Trisha Morales, Rhea Sampillo, and Christian Toledo. Together, we hope to empower with the next generation to speak on issues they face and create intergenerational dialogue to truly make change within the system we move through. At the moment, we are documenting oral histories to help push for AAPI ethnic studies in the K-12 curriculum here in Texas. We are seeking champions for those who can speak at the School Board of Education's convening in 2023 and organizing efforts before then. If you would like to learn more, please visit Houston Collective for Reimagining Education's website, HoustonReimaginingEducation.com. Again, thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing those stories with us. All right, we're almost near the end of our program. Our next speaker is Ann Sung. She was the first Asian American ever elected to the Houston ISD School Board. She's the daughter of immigrants from Hong Kong and serves on the board of OCA Greater Houston and is the proud mother of a Chinese and Indian American girl. Ann.
Today, this anniversary
anniversary of the terrible spa shootings in Atlanta, Georgia, is a day for remembrance and healing. Today is also a day for action. A year ago, in March 2021, in the wake of those terrible shootings, the AAPI community came together with allies at rallies like this one, and we called for change. And Asian American women, Senator Mazie Hirono of Hawaii and Representative Grace Meng of New York, introduced a bill in Congress a year ago in March 2021, the COVID Hate Crimes Bill, which passed Congress and became law in May 2021, requiring the Department of Justice to expedite the review of hate crimes against AAPIs. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. It doesn't do that by itself, though. It is through action, through rallies like this one, through education and solidarity, through organizing, through advocacy, and through voting that we fight back against hate and achieve a more just society. Before I served on the Houston ISD School Board, I was a teacher and a community organizer. So pardon me, but I'm going to give you some homework. So think of all the powerful speeches we've heard today. Who here has learned something today? Raise your hand if you've learned something that you didn't know until you came here today. Okay. Raise your hand if you learned about one action that you're going to commit to taking to stand in solidarity with Asian American women. If you have one in your mind, this is called think time. Think time. If you have an action in your mind you're going to commit to, raise your hand. And take that action and tell it to somebody. Tell it to somebody you came here with today, or call up somebody on your way home, or if you don't have a partner, you can tweet at me. I'm Ann Sun, A-N-N-E-S-U-N-G. If you haven't thought of one yet, if you haven't raised your hand, here are 5 more. Let me recap some of the many powerful actions we can take. In a national survey, 74% of AAPI women said that this past year they had been harassed. 38% sexually harassed, 12% faced gender or race-based physical violence. So take a look at you. Take a look around at the Asian American women here today. Think about the grandmothers, the children, the women in your lives, and imagine 74% of them facing harassment. Commit to taking a bystander intervention training, if you haven't already, so that when that act of harassment happens in front of you, you know how to safely intervene, how to support victims, how to report. Okay, a second action you can take. Let's commit to telling our history. Let's advocate, as the students who spoke before me powerfully said, for Texas to teach AAPI history. As we have a Mexican American Studies course, as we teach African American Studies in high schools, we should also offer AAPI students and all students the opportunity to learn about AAPI history. And until it's taught in our schools, let's teach it ourselves. Let's bring our friends, let's bring our children to OCA's Happy Fest. That's a film festival happening in June, and to hear about the powerful histories and stories of our community. A third action, let's recommit to solidarity with other groups that face oppression. The violence faced by Asian American women, by Asian American non-binary individuals is inextricably linked with sexism, with transphobia. Let's stand in solidarity with our Black and Brown communities. Thank you to our Black and Brown sisters who came out today for this event. Let's show up for them as they show up for us. Number 4, let's vote in every single election. Let's vote in November, yes, but let's vote in March. Let's vote in May 24th, when then Chao's in his runoff. Let's register our friends and our family members to vote. Thank you, Engage, for setting up the voter registration table here. Let's volunteer on campaigns, because make no mistake, there are people gathering together in rooms where they say the slurs that we've heard today and laugh, and where they're planning to remove from the classrooms of students from the classrooms and from the libraries of students here in Texas. There are people planning to make sure that the histories of civil rights leaders are taken out. And in order for us to move our agenda forward, in order to protect and defend Asian American women, we need to be heard, we need to be voting, and we need to make sure that elected leaders everywhere know that we expect them to work for us. Finally, number 5, let's renew our commitment to the organizations leading the fight for justice. Let's give a round of applause to the organizations that organized this event here tonight. These organizations are on the front lines for us, fighting for our community, and we need to be there for them. Let's give our time, let's give our treasure, let's give our talent to these organizations. If you're not a member, join. You don't have to be Asian American to join the OCA or many of these other organizations that are represented here today. The moral universe, okay, wait. So, I've given you 5 things. So now, this is your think time. Who here is going to leave with an idea of one step that you can take to support, to stand in solidarity with the Asian American community? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you, thank you. The moral universe of the arc of the moral universe is long, but together, standing in solidarity and persisting, we will bend it toward justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne, for that. All right, coming up next is Mooney Zulkifli. She's going to be presenting a poem by Kaylin Brown. Mooney is a first-generation Malaysian American born in Louisiana and raised in Connecticut. She moved to Houston in 2017 for grad school at Rice University and now works as a geoscientist for an energy company here in town. Mooney.
Hello, everybody. Today I'll be reciting a poem written by Kaylin Brown. Thank you. Sometimes I feel like I can't weigh in on what it's really like to be Asian. Even though the world sees my face and assumes the environment I was raised in. But decisions out of my control took me from my homeland and led me to unknown hands who would become my family. But my background doesn't matter. The same questions have been asked for my whole life. Where are you really from? Do you speak the mother tongue? Wait, how old are you? You look so young. But the ones that really hurt were the explicit words hurled as my body was subject to lingering eyes, fetishized, as if acquiring me is a prize, to be won with smooth lines. I try to hurry by and say I don't have time to stop and allow your gaze to drink up any more of my face, but I know they've already gotten what they wanted. I'm haunted by my fears that I'll be hunted by their leers and gutted for years and years that I'll be always inferior because of how they perceive my exterior. I want to fight back and be bold. The hate weighs on my soul, but I'm told to slow my roll. Don't make it worse. Just live under the curse of the model minority myth that tells me to sit down, push my feelings down, don't make too much sound, and maybe soon the racism will just dissipate. But every new day, there is more trauma uncovered, more elders who suffer, more systemic inequalities discovered, more supposed allies who hide under performative posts that promote Asian voices, but still center their own choices, just exploiting our stories for their gain, only to be old news the next day, while pain is continuously thrown in our face. It's exhausting to live this way. But we'd be lying if we didn't say that we do the same. And worse, we do it in God's name. We stay quiet for the sake of unity. We end up just keeping to our own communities because over there, they do things differently. Their interpretations are wrong. They sing different songs. We say they don't belong. Go back to where you came from. Aren't we also participants in these hateful chants? We've said and thought horrible things against while expecting them to come to our defense? If we really want to be unified, we need to step over dividing lines, even if it means we lose our lives. Because isn't that what the Holy did for us? Tore down the walls of hostility for you and me to experience solidarity. My humanity is tied to yours. I don't want liberation if it's just for me. We are all meant to be free. Today, we're calling to stop Asian hate. But we can't stop with that statement. We can't get complacent until the next headline of racism calls us out of activist hibernation. Y'all, are we in this for the long haul? Will we stand firm and steady in the call to seek justice and dignity for all? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moody, for that. All right. Our next speaker is Bianca Louis. She is a sociologist at Rice University, a writer and educator. Bianca will be sharing a portion of her recent op-ed from Elle magazine and leading us in a moment of silence. Bianca?
Hi, I'm Bianca Louis, and I'll be reading a short excerpt. If you're interested in reading more, it's online in Elle magazine. The most recent wave of anti-Asian racism over the last 2 years has simultaneously fatigued me and given me hope. As the societal pendulum swings between hate and progress, I find myself oscillating from despair to cognizance. On days when I get stuck in the negativity, it is the art, the voices, the thoughtfulness, the organizing, and the collective leadership of other Asian women that lifts me from my darkness and brings me back to my purpose. And I'm not talking about just the community of Asian women who are like me or who are seen as successful or respectable, but the community of Asian women who are also domestic workers, those of us who are undocumented, who may not be eligible to vote, but who are the foundation of our communities. Those of us who are sex workers, those of us who are queer and trans, those of us who are monolingual, are grassroots organizers who are abolitionists pushing for public safety measures that don't only rely on police. It is this diverse tapestry of our community and the collective leadership of Asian women that give me hope. Community with each other, being taken care of and taking care of these women is what makes life worth living. Gendered and racial violence endures, but I'm still here, an indisputable part of an ecosystem of Asian women who are still creating, still leading, still gathering, still checking in on each other, still sending each other food. We are still loving each other, and we are still fighting for our lives together. And with that, I'm going to move us into the next 30 seconds as a moment of silence to honor the victims we've lost to the Atlanta shooting a year ago and to anti-Asian racism. I'm going to name the 8 victims we lost, and we will move into our silence. Xiao Jie Tan, Dao Yu Feng, Hyun Jung Grant, Soon Chung Park, Sun Cha Kim, Yong A Yu, Delana Ashley Yuan, Paul Andre Michaels. Thank you for taking that moment of silence, and we will transition now to our prayer.
Thank you very much for that, Bianca. All right, to close out our program tonight, I want to introduce Pastor Grace Lynn. She is Pastor Lynn grew up in Houston, and she's a licensed minister at Access Church in the Spring Branch area. Pastor Lynn?
Will you join me in praying? God of compassion, justice, and mercy, we lift up our voices today to one another, to the world, and to you. We mourn, grieve, and are angered by the increase in violent and brutal attacks against our people and the loss of the lives of our beloved AAPI sisters and elders in the past year. We pray for your comforts and care for their families that were left behind. How long, O Lord? How long will the violence and the attacks continue? How many lives need to be lost before we see justice in the systems of our land? How long will it take for our country to no longer see us as perpetual foreigners so that we can safely live, raise our families, and walk on the streets without looking over our shoulders? How long will it take for us to be recognized, respected, and to belong as Americans? As they attempt to erase our culture and history, you, oh God, you tell us that our Asian culture is a treasure, that we, along with all the other nations, have cultural wealth to offer. And yet we continue to be invisible, to not be fully seen for all that we are. But you, our Creator, you see us fully as our whole selves, because we bear your image. And you know and call each one of us by name. We are exhausted, weary, and worn out because of this weight we have been carrying throughout this pandemic, yet you gently remind us that your presence is with us and we are not alone. When we don't have the words, you hear the cries from our hearts as they ache, and you weep with us in our pain. When our hearts are shattered to pieces because we've heard of yet another brutal attack, you hold us together in your hands. Give us hope and peace in the midst of anger, fear, and anxiety. And as we depart tonight, may the Spirit of God strengthen us so that we will no longer be silent, and embolden us so that we may use our communal voices wherever we show up in our everyday lives to speak out for racial justice for the AAPI community and other communities of color. Lord, we give you thanks for hearing our prayers. It's in the powerful and strong and loving name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you everyone for coming out and for all the volunteers who have made this rally possible. We could not have done it with all of you. Specifically, thank you to Alice Lee, Helen Shee, Joy Solomon, Joshua Lee, Lilana Pudiso, and Stephanie Ng, who made this entire thing happen in less than 2 weeks. And whether you're an API woman or an ally, thank you for being here and standing with us. It's time for us to remain standing and to break the silence. We are not here to fade into the background. We are not here to be pushed around, and we will not remain silent any longer. Our voices and stories matter and will be heard. Thank you for uniting with us, and please get home safely.